All right. Well, now we're going to, unless there's anyone on the M team that wants to add anything after that video. Cool. We are going to get started talking about your roles and responsibilities as the County Farm Bureau president. So we'll talk a little bit about what that job description looks like, what standards of conduct we have for all leadership roles. That's not just your County Farm Bureau president, and then how we can continue some of these learning opportunities past just this afternoon. So I want to start this with a quote from one of my favorite guys, Mr. Ronald Reagan himself, who said that the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one who gets the people to do the greatest things. And I think sometimes we're very intimidated by the idea of stepping into a County Farm Bureau president position because we think, wow, what a time commitment. I have to do all of these things at the county level. I have to implement our work plan. I have to come up with the work plan. When in all reality, we want you to harness those skills at the local level on your county board and help delegate so that your County Farm Bureau is healthy throughout across the board and work is delegated. No one's feeling as though they're doing all of the things themselves. So one of the things that I find kind of funny when we talk about job descriptions with you guys is so many of you cannot come up with a job description for your day-to-day. As a farmer or rancher, 5, 10, 20 years in, you might have a day where you think, wow, never in a million years did I think I'd be doing this on the farm or ranch. We'll add this to the job description. It's always growing. But for your County Farm Bureau president role, it really isn't that complex once you break it down. So that is what we're going to do today. And I hope that you find some sense of a reprieve in the fact that your role as County Farm Bureau president is a little bit more predictable than your day-to-day. So when we talk about the function of your role, you are truly to manage the day-to-day activities of your county organization. You're to give leadership to the activities and organization of the County Farm Bureau and preside over the board and general meetings of the members. You are the boss at those meetings who are supposed to keep everything going as planned, make sure that everybody is being able to share their opinion and you're getting the job done and getting through the agenda effectively. Reportability. I think oftentimes we think that, we're reportable to the board when in fact you as a County Farm Bureau president were elected at your county annual meeting by the voting delegates. So that is who you report to. So I think it's important to note that if you're only reporting to them once a year at your annual meeting, maybe we need to increase the amount of times that you're getting together with your voting delegates, who you are technically reportable to. Also note, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to interject in the chat box or flag me down. Authority. You are authorized to supervise the general operations of the County Farm Bureau. You aren't authorized to speak on behalf of the County Farm Bureau unless those decisions have been made and your message has really been narrowed down in a board meeting and voted on. Relationships, we kind of already touched on this with Farm Bureau staff. Your job is going to be a lot easier if you build really effective working relationships with Farm Bureau staff across the board, specifically your regional managers, as well as your county board. And then we always really emphasize, trying to grow those relationships with your insurance agents. County Farm Bureaus that have a relationship with their insurance office seem to have a lot of success when they do those things. They've got another person on board bringing new ideas, and they've got probably their biggest membership recruiter in the room. So definitely encourage folks to build those relationships with their insurance agents. Some responsibilities, manage and administer county programs and services. That doesn't mean doing all of the things, making a checklist for yourself. It also means delegating some of these responsibilities to board members and committee chairmen where appropriate. You preside at county board meetings, annual meetings of members, and special meetings. So part of your job is calling a meeting as well. If you aren't having these opportunities, maybe that's a great time to say, all right, I'm going to call a meeting. And that's just a matter of getting a hold of your board and saying, we're going to meet on this date and time. Does that work for everybody? A couple of more on here: serve as the ex officio member of all committees. Sometimes Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't, if you're thinking about like the Women's Leadership Committee chair and you're not a woman, but we added on there. Lead the board in goal setting and long range planning programs. So that's what we're talking about when we're building those program of works. And that is something that we are doing pretty regularly in January. So if you do not have a program of work, like Alina said, start talking to your regional manager. We'd be really happy to do that with you. And we will really look to you as a leader during that discussion. Ensure that actions by the board and members are implemented. So if we have a plan, if we're maybe missing a few steps or things aren't getting done, that comes to you guys to make sure that, you know, so-and-so has brought what she needed to bring to the meeting. We're contacting the people we said we were going to contact. Represent the organization on official business when the need arises. You only speak on behalf of your county farm bureau when that message has been decided upon by the board. But oftentimes when you are the county farm bureau president, from a county perspective, they look to you as that local voice. And I think that, you know, your county farm bureaus are in good hands with all of you speaking in that role. So it's important to keep personally informed on issues in farm bureau's positions, because they likely look to you when they think about farm bureau, even beyond their county. We talk about a few different standards of conduct, and we break this into our duties. And the first one is duty of care. And this is, you know, knowing the organization's mission, purpose, goals. You are doing all you can to take on this leadership role to the best of your abilities. You regularly prepare for, attend, and participate in meetings. You exercise informed, independent judgment. So when you're making a decision, you're using caution and concern about risks. You're thinking for yourself and how this affects your county farm bureau. You deliberate carefully, considering all relevant information prior to making a decision, and you protect the assets of the organization. So for each of these different standards of conduct, we're going to share a little bit of a scenario with you, a real life scenario that maybe you have faced at your county farm bureau yourself, actually. And then we'll give you guys the opportunity to type in the chat box what you think the answer is, or you can simply speak up too. There we go. So scenario one, life has been busy for Steve lately, and he hasn't had a chance to call a county board meeting for the last 3 months. A local fair board member has been bugging Steve about sponsoring the 4-H auction at the county fair, but Steve has put off answering him until he can talk to some of the board members. Steve runs into a board member, Kim, at the feed store. He talks to Kim about the county farm bureau support of sponsoring the 4-H auction, and Kim is in favor of spending the money. After the conversation, Steve is sure that the other board members would agree and makes the decision to sponsor the 4-H auction. Steve calls the treasurer and asks them to cut a check for $500 for the 4-H auction sponsorship. What is wrong with the way Steve handled this situation? So I did see that there was a chat in the box, but it's not about this. So if and when you have an answer, please type it in the chat box or simply raise your hand and we'll let you chat. I might need some help from the other M team because I can't see everyone on my end.
Yeah, don't be afraid to just chime in. There we go. Ben Peel said, at least call the other board members. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be a meeting. If it's timely, if it's time sensitive, give everybody a call. Okay. What else?
This is where a group text message can be really helpful if you have a running group text message for your board. I know not everyone loves group text messages, but the president could just type in there, hey, we've been approached. They'd like to know soon. And, you know, let us know all in favor or not. And that's a written record, or email JM added. That's a written record of that decision by the board.
Tom's got a good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. Pre-authorize a small level of spending. If these things are regularly coming up and you know it's something that you want to support, that's a conversation that you can have well in advance. And I think this is where the program of work discussion is really, really helpful, because you can kind of talk about, these are the things that we want to support this year. So you can already say, we're planning to support 4-H at the local fair in August.
Yeah, I was going to add to this too, that it's important to realize that the authority of the County Farm Bureau is collective. So in other words, the officers and the board of directors have the authority to speak for the County Farm Bureau. Sometimes a board can give the executive officer, in this case, the County Farm Bureau president, the authority to do certain things. And if they do that, that would be a little bit of a different answer. But otherwise, authority for the County Farm Bureau is collective.
For sure. Individual board members, county president, they don't have the authority to speak on behalf of the board. And when they do, it does disrupt this sense of teamwork as well. And it sends the wrong message to the rest of the board. So it's certainly not a culture that we want to be encouraging either.
And I'll just say too, that this can really easily happen in a situation of a county farm bureau, especially if you have a board that hasn't had a lot of turnover, or a president and a secretary that are married to each other, or somebody who's been in a president's role for a really long time and just says, oh, it's going to be fine. I'm just going to do this. I've done this before. But, this is what we're talking about. Really, when you're leading an organization and they're entrusting you to do things right, this is duty of care. And no matter how long you've been in that role, you still need to take those steps to make sure you're doing it right, even if you've been in the president's role for 15 years, which we don't encourage, by the way.
I'll add that this can make new members or potential board members, even new board members, feel left out of discussions, because then they attend the local rodeo or something and it says, thank you for the sponsorship, Farm Bureau. And they didn't even know that happened. And it can make them feel uncomfortable or just left out of the conversations and decision making. So all around, get everyone on board, keep everyone informed. Certainly a good idea.
For sure. All right, let's go to the next one. Duty of loyalty. So this means acting in good faith, focusing on the best interest of the organization before anything. You're respectful of staff time. You avoid special requests without prior consultation with, it says appropriate management, with the board, and guard against any disclosure of the organization's confidential information. So pretty often I think of this being, what is a conflict of interest, and recognizing those conflicts and acting in the right way when they happen. So let's talk about one of those examples. So here's scenario 2. Your rural community is buzzing about a new proposed mine going in 5 miles west of town. The mine will bring much needed tax revenues to your small community, not to mention good paying jobs and a boost to your small school's enrollment numbers. The environmental community has been aggressively opposed to the mine. As the county president, you decide to call a meeting with your local county board to decide on how the County Farm Bureau will get involved. Walt is the vice president of the county board and also the owner of the land where the proposed mine will be located. How should the county board proceed? Feel free to type your answers in the chat box or just speak up. I'm thinking we just have some very well thought out answers coming our way. Okay, JM says Walt needs to recuse himself from the discussion. Agree with that entirely. He should leave the room during the discussion and the vote. What else?
Don't be afraid to unmute. It's not scary.
I guess there'd be a question in my mind about how or at what level the County Farm Bureau should be involved.
I think that's a very good point. I mean, there clearly needs to be a conversation where they say, can we vote on this unbiasedly? Because if we can't, we shouldn't be voting on it at all. And if somebody asks us what our position is, maybe we do just need to say, we couldn't vote on this without bias. So we have chosen to recuse ourselves from this issue.
I also think that the duty of loyalty dictates that no matter what Walt is feeling on this, and maybe this is a decision that's in favor of the County Farm Bureau and the mission, but he needs to remember that while he's on the board, his duty of loyalty is to vote for what's best for the County Farm Bureau, not necessarily his pocketbook or Walt's farm or ranch.
That's very true. So AFBF describes this as the fish test. So if it smells fishy, it's not okay. If it smells like it could be fishy, it's probably not okay. Even the perception of a conflict is a conflict of interest to anyone from the outside looking in and should probably be handled as such. And when those conflicts aren't very clear, it's really important that you disclose them too. So this one was probably pretty obvious to everyone that it was his land, but sometimes those conflicts aren't super obvious. And it is really important that you say, oh, I've got a conflict of interest here. I'm going to recuse myself.
I think that these things can come up, so much in a rural community. Maybe somebody on the board owns the local cafe, and that's where you meet and have all of your meal functions. Well, that doesn't really pass the sniff test. Or if, somebody's purchasing something, why not purchase it from a board member? There again, you're getting into a tricky situation. Does anybody have an example that they could share with the group of a time when they were presented, the county board of directors was presented with a bit of a conflict of interest that they had to work through, and how did they work through it?
I can add one from the regional manager's point of view. It can be with the best intentions. So this isn't a hand slap always of like, oh, that was ill thought out, or, that wasn't done appropriately. A county's doing a beef in local schools food program. And so it was just recently discussed at their last board meeting. What they're doing is they're buying local beef and then donating it to the schools, but the county is purchasing. If the rancher doesn't donate the whole beef, and that's up to them, then the county purchases it or they pay for the processing. And so it was discussed that should not be the same rancher every time. That, there's plenty of people raising cattle out there. So let's make sure that we're asking different rancher members to donate those beef or purchase the beef from them. So that was, again, really great program, great intentions, but I was glad they thought through, okay, well, we purchased from this member this time. Next year, we need to make sure that we go to someone else.
Yeah, that's a great example. And JM shared one in the chat as well. He had shared that they had a similar issue in their county and that the County Farm Bureau chose not to engage at all, which I think Ricky's point is a great way to combat that. If your County Farm Bureau can't take a stance, that doesn't mean that your foot is out the door. You don't have to be involved at all. Maybe this is your opportunity to just hold an informational session. What information can you share with the general public for them to make their own decisions? Okay. Anything else? We're going to move on to the next one. Okay.
This is Dennis. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay. We have the APR right next to us, and that's very touchy subject. So we have to be careful on, what we did do there, because we can't say we're in favor of them or we start losing members in a hurry. But then again, we have a hard time saying we're exactly against them because of the downtown stores in Lewistown. Plus, it's private property rights. I get into a lot of problems when I get into the property rights thing because they bought it. They can do whatever they want to with it. It's kind of like the Wilkes' ranch they bought up all the land, not running very many cows, but they want all the elk. So we have a problem there. So we can't, be in favor one way and tell them they can't do this and then have private property rights in the middle of it. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Dennis. Okay. The next one is duty of obedience. So this is, being obedient to your county farm bureau. You're familiar with and follow the governance documents. So this is your bylaws. You're a team player and you support board decisions even when the outcome is contrary to how you voted, which is really important because sometimes things don't always go your way. You support the executive management and policies of the organization. You follow the administrative and other procedures of the organization, and you follow all state and federal laws governing nonprofit organizations. That one's pretty common sense. So what does that look like in practice? Scenario 3. At their July meeting, the county board, of which you are a member, made a controversial decision to support a local water project that isn't popular with all the egg producers in the county. The decision is backed up by State Farm Bureau policy. You went on record opposed to the decision, but you were defeated during the board vote. You have been invited to speak at the next county commissioners meeting. During the meeting, a commissioner asks you how you stand on the local water project and asked you about how all of the other county board members voted on the issue. What should your response be? What do you think, guys?
It's Tom. Well, since the state, if I read this right, the State Farm Bureau passed that policy. So even though you may have been opposed to it, you should stand behind the state policy, even at the local level, I would assume.
Yeah, there is a process to dissent from a State Farm Bureau policy, but it's pretty long. Probably wouldn't leave you time to go to the county commissioners meeting the week of your county farm bureau meeting. But those policies are in place for a reason. So when speaking on behalf of Farm Bureau, that's what speaks, is that policy. What else?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Liv. Is this person, was he asked to speak on behalf of Farm Bureau?
That's my understanding of it, because they asked about the county board as well. They're asking, what is Southwest County's Farm Bureau feel?
Oh, yeah. Well, then you got to go with, I don't know. That's complicated. You have to go with what the state says. Yeah, that's complicated. I was going to say, I know lots of people who are Farm Bureau members and, speak on a lot of stuff. And when they oppose us, sometimes they make clear that they're not speaking on behalf of Farm Bureau too. And if you're opposing something, or even if you're supporting something that the board didn't authorize, you should make it clear that you're not representing Farm Bureau, because I've seen that happen a lot of times in our area where, we've had a policy voted down on the floor at the state level that person goes on to support at our local level, but not associated with Farm Bureau.
Yeah. And I mean, even during the legislative session, that's something we really encourage people to share, is that they are a county Farm Bureau member, even if they're not speaking on Farm Bureau on behalf of Farm Bureau, to say, I'm also the Southwest County's Farm Bureau president, though I'm not speaking on behalf of Farm Bureau. So I understand that as well.
And it's tough and it's tricky, and policy is one thing too, but there's such a thing as apparent authority. So basically, if everybody knows that you're the county Farm Bureau president, you're speaking on an issue. And what happened was that there was another organization, and the leader basically bound the organization to a certain decision outside of a county vote. Well, it was controversial and ended up in litigation, and it went all the way to Supreme Court in the state in question. And they found that the leader had apparent authority. And so what he did outside of the county Farm Bureau meeting bound the organization to that decision. And so you have to be real careful and be pretty tricky that even if you're a leader and you're not speaking on behalf of Farm Bureau, you've got apparent authority. And if your county Farm Bureau board voted a certain way, once that board meeting is over, you really need to be careful and be bound by the decision as a whole of the board as a whole.
Yeah, and I had to read I had to reread this a couple times. My opinion now, after rereading it like for the fourth time, is you need to suck it up and do what the state and your board said, and your personal views got the window if you're the leader.
I think it's important. Go ahead.
Just be clear. I request, if you don't agree with everything, if you're going to go to a meeting or something, if we as a board oppose something, you be clear that you represent the board and disclose that and represent our decision. And if not, it's your own personal deal, but be sure to disclose that.
There's another part of this question that I want to ask you guys. When he's at this meeting, they say, well, how did the other county board members vote on this issue? So they want to know who voted yes and who voted no. How do we handle that?
We don't have to share, they're not obliged to share that information.
No. And at
The other thing I
day,
was going to make a point of was, I mean, if you're the president, so you're the president or whoever's asked to speak as the person who opposed it, maybe that person just asked someone else on the board, like, hey, I'm against this. I don't want to go talk about something I'm against. The board supported. I support the board's position, but I don't want to be the face of this. So, you know, ask your vice president, ask another board member. Well, maybe you should be the one to go speak at the commission meeting. That would be a way to take yourself, if you're the one in the odd man out in the situation, take yourself out of the situation and let that, and then that way you don't have to oppose it or have an uncomfortable. If you're opposing this, you let someone else speak on it.
that's a great point.
Also, this is Carla. I think that I'm not sure it's the right of the commissioners to ask how board members personally voted. So I guess I'm asking, but I would think that would not be appropriate. Since the vote was as a board, up or down, not as individuals voting. And then you would be kind of, you know, pointing out different people, and I don't think that's right.
Agreed. Yep. Although I will say, I think there are county commissioners across the state that will want to know that very thing. If they don't like what they're hearing, they'll want to know how the vote went. And I think you're exactly right, Carly. It's important to say, all right, no, our decision has already been made. As a county farm bureau, this is what we decided. Because at the end of the day, even you as the county president, you might have a decision someday that's a close vote and you're on the prevailing side, and other board members will have to speak on that issue too. So it all ends up in the wash.
Liv, can you see the chat by chance?
Oh, okay, Brandon. I'm currently being asked to speak and present to the county commissioners related to an additional committee I belong to regarding our county wildfire county protection plan. This has been a contentious issue a few years back. I'm speaking on behalf of my professional role in the community, but I have asked our county leadership if they want to be involved in this process. Gotcha.
I guess, am I on mute? I don't know.
I can hear you now. Yeah, feel free to speak.
Sorry. So, I mean, that is something that is in the works. And I mean, I am playing that role on a professional level, but our county has asked to, it has been brought up, I brought it up at one of our county meetings, and we're just kind of waiting to get a little more information and direction as to what we as a county farm bureau can do in that process. But
does anyone have some wisdom to share with Brandon? Yeah, I would just say that it sounds like you're already doing it. You've already shared that you already have this role that's being played right now within this issue outside of the realm of Farm Bureau. So I feel like you've covered your bases there with conflict of interest. And at the end of the day, you have to have the decision that you've already made outside of Farm Bureau. So
I think it's tough for our people because so many of you are from small communities, and not only are you serving as a representative on your Farm Bureau board, but some of you have responsibilities to the local school board or things like that. And people will see you on the street and recognize you maybe in one of those roles. And it's hard to differentiate when you're being candid with a friend or a neighbor where you stand on an issue personally or what your organization has decided. So, thankfully, I think some of these things happen few and far between, but this is just something to remind you that you are part of a team and the voice of this organization needs to be kind of protected and taken care of.
yeah.
I think if you run into situations like this, I'm not opposed to meeting with groups that they may, whatever, but I always say we make decisions as a board. period. They're not individual or my view or his view. It's a board's view, plain and simple. And so if that's a 4-3 vote or a 7-0 vote, it is what it is, but it's a board decision.
Yeah, at the end of the day, a simple majority wins.
Yep.
All right. Good discussion, guys. I think I've just got one last thing for you. So some best practices to keep in mind. You guys know these things. Review meeting materials in advance. That's also your financial statements. Before your meeting, you're going through them to ensure that you've got your bases covered so that your meeting is productive and well thought out. You already have questions in line or points to bring up at your meeting. You're considering the opinions or reports of officers, the entire board, anyone who might be able to provide insight into some of these issues that you're working out on at the county level, and you ask timely and substantive questions. Last but not least, if you want to know more, I encourage you all to check out Farm Bureau University. This is AFBS platform for online learning for all things Farm Bureau. So they have all of this information and so much more included in different online modules so that you can watch videos, it's very interactive, and you can also do handouts that I can print out and bring to a meeting. Any of your regional managers can do. There's a little bit of instructions on this slide on how you get registered. We will share these slides with you after the meeting, so you'll have that in front of you. Otherwise, that is all I have right now. So I am going to stop screen sharing. Does anyone have any questions?
Liv, I have a question. This is Tom. Regarding, I think it would probably pertain to that scenario 2. So if the American Farm Bureau has a policy that maybe we don't quite stand behind, I would assume we should stand behind the American Farm Bureau policy, even though maybe it's something that's never passed our state. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm trying to remember the scenario, and I don't mean to get off topic here, and if I am, just pull it back in here.
No, you're just.
So I'm trying to recall, this has been several years ago. I don't know if Montana Farm Bureau had the policy, and I'm not sure the American Farm Bureau had a policy. But they supported, what was it called? Like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Do you remember? Does anybody remember that? Maybe what the American Farm Bureau was supporting? Yeah. But so there was things in that partnership that I felt the Montana Farm Bureau had policy against. And I don't know, the support, whether American Farm Bureau actually, had a policy, but the leadership took a role in saying, we support this partnership. Yet there was things in it that I thought we had policy that opposed. And I had a tough time with that. Remember President Hansen was on the board at the time, and I remember him kind of visiting with him, and he said, well, regardless of what our policy said, you've got to go with what the American Farm Bureau leadership wants to support. I guess that was the correct thing. I don't know, but even though I know we had policy that I felt was directly contradicted within the bigger partnership agreement. So,
Well, Tom, you set me up for a later slide, so I appreciate that.
okay.
Yeah. We have the short answer is, and it's timely now, is that we have a uniform membership agreement with American Farm Bureau. Likewise, counties do with the Montana Farm Bureau, and it's part of our federated structure. If it is national in scope, the issue in question, or international in scope, the issue in question, then we have to defer to the policy that was passed at the American Farm Bureau level and in their policy book, unless we feel so strongly that we ask to object from that or dissent from that policy. And there is a procedure in that agreement where we can write a letter to the board of the American Farm Bureau and ask to be basically excused, or that make it known publicly that we dissent from that policy. And I know that in the issue of raw milk, several states did that not too long ago. And so you're free to do that once you get that permission to dissent from a particular policy.